Well, welcome everybody to another Wine Time Yakima, our new series that airs online every Saturday, where we talk to a local, celebrity, somebody who's in the news, somebody who's behind the news, or somebody who's perhaps not so known in the news, who's doing Yakima good. And this week, I'm very pleased to say, our guest is John Baule. And John is attached to the Yakima Museum, but
That's correct.
also you're a big wheel, no pun intended, in the Rotary in the city.
I don't know how big a wheel I am, but I am in Rotary.
But it's been a very important part of your life.
Oh yes, oh yes.
Now you sent me some notes which really made me laugh because you said shortly after the Earth cooled.
Yes, that's about when I was born, yes,
I
that's
didn't
true.
think anyone could be as old as me. But anyway, but you actually come from Dubuque, Iowa, which I thought was interesting.
Dubuque.
Oh, I
Dubuque.
apologize.
Yes, you gotta watch that.
So what was your journey from Iowa, because you went east, I think, and then ended up here in Yakima?
Right. I started in Dubuque, and I always was really interested in local history because my families on both sides had long roots, one in Iowa and one in Florida, and so I was always kind of interested in it, but I never thought that I'd have a career in it. But just by chance, I got a summer job at the local museum in Dubuque, and through that, I met people from the State Historical Society of Iowa, and so I ended up spending a summer in Colonial Williamsburg as an intern, and then I went to graduate school in New York State at the Cooperstown Graduate Program, which is one of the older programs for museum studies. And so then I stayed there. I stayed up in upstate New York. I was 18 miles south of the Canadian border in a town called Canton, where St. Louis University is located.
Right.
And so had a lot of fun up there, still have friends up there. Has very long winters.
That is true.
Yeah.
I lived in New York very briefly, and the winters are hard.
Yes. You know, actually, the middle of the winter is great. It's cold, it's snowy, it's fun, actually. The problem is it just goes on forever. You know?
Well, it's a bit like Yakima. The first days of snow are great, and you think, will it go away now?
Yes, exactly.
Now, John, we've got a wine that the Yakima Visitor Center have chosen for us again today, and we want to say a big thank you to them for hosting us for this interview. Now, this is from Ryder Cellars, and this is an estate Pinot Blanc. Now, you're a white fan, I understand.
Yes, I am.
To red?
Yes.
Or do you drink both?
I drink both, but white is probably preferable.
Well, there you go.
Don't go too far on it here. Otherwise, you'll have a guest who's sleeping here.
Well, it's a Saturday night. We can risk it.
Yes.
Well, John,
we
cheers.
Can do it.
Thank you
Cheers.
for choosing the wine.
Well, thank you for having me.
And that's very nice. Oh, I like a Pinot. That is very nice indeed.
That is very nice.
Good choice
yes.
there, John.
Right.
So you ended up in New York, but how did you then make the transition all the way to Yakima?
I went to worked for actually in New York, Canton. They had bought a historic house, but they didn't know what to do with it, and so I ended up overseeing the restoration of it. It was an 1830s house that had been lived and owned by a governor of New York State and a New York State senator. He was actually the leading candidate for the 1848 presidential nomination, but he had the poor taste to die right before the convention. So it kind of put him out of the running. Just slightly, he wasn't too animated. So that's how you got Zachary Taylor. But anyway, he was pretty well known in his day, but by the time I came along, he was not really well. He died in 1847, so it's a long time ago. And so I got really interested in that. And then I got recruited to go to a totally different kind of place in Minneapolis. And so then I worked in Minneapolis for about 5 years and had a summer internship with the Getty Museum and the Getty program, which was actually not at the Getty, but it was run by the Getty. And out of that, I took a one-year job in Pittsburgh. They were building a new urban history center. And to tell you the truth, I really didn't like Pittsburgh very much. And it really wasn't their fault as much as the fact that Pittsburgh, somebody told me when I went there that I wouldn't probably stay very long. And I said, why? It's because I'd always lived in places that had more open space. And Pittsburgh doesn't, the way it's built, geography-wise. And that was true. I really missed that kind of thing. So this opportunity came up out here, and I thought, well, I never lived in the West. And, I figured I'd end up having to go back to the Midwest originally because I had parents who were getting older, and my dad had multiple sclerosis. So I figured I'd be the one to end up back there? Well, I ended up liking it out here. People have been really, really nice to me, and I was allowed to do a lot of things. So I was director at the museum then from 1992 until the end of 2016.
So you came in the 90s?
Yes,
Oh.
yes. I was 12, more or less. Yeah,
I think I was too.
yeah. You probably were.
No, I'm afraid not. So you've made your home here. The museum has been an incredible passion for you, and you've done a lot of work with it, and you've done a lot to make it a success. What is the passion that you have for the museum and this history in this particular area?
Well, I find that the stories and what happens in present day really has roots back. I just like the history and the progression of time and people. And it's been very fascinating, really, in a place like this to, begin to understand, how families come together, different segments of community, and some of that all goes back to generations before. It's been interesting here because, as I said, I grew up in Iowa. Not to mention that again, but that was founded, as Euro-American settlers came in there in 1833, and then I went out back to New York, and they were back, 100 years earlier, with more settled, what we call our civilization now, which of course, doesn't speak to the Native American populations that were there before. And then to come out here, and there was nothing here, more or less, in the early 1880s. And then by 1900 even, it's a fully functioning with library and, police forces and, all the, things of a modern city. So it's been kind of interesting to see that. And it's not that much different. It's just kind of compressed, because by the time you get here, it's already, it's so many structures are already in place. You don't have to build, and they import it. You have railroads here, and the railroad is the reason this place exists, really. Without the railroad, there would be no Yakima.
That's a very good point, and that's true of so many Western cities. So, in effect, Yakima is a relatively very young city.
Yes.
It hasn't really existed all that long. So when you're curating a museum, when you're coming up with what you want to tell in terms of its history, how do you approach that?
Well, really, almost all American cities are kind of the same. It's just you take the dates and you take the industries and you take the time frame, whatever, just in different, you just have a different way. You have early settlers who come in, they see opportunity. It's really all about opportunity. They see people, this is a place they can come, they can make a living. There are stories after story after story of families who come here because they have lost what they did before, because that business went out of shape. I just took in a bunch of papers from a family who, after I figured out who they all were and traced back they came out of Minnesota because they had a small flour mill in a smaller town in Minnesota. And by the time this area was developing, the big guys, flour mills, were consolidating so much that those small mills couldn't make it anymore. It's very much the same story you see now. You talk about businesses that go out of business because something else comes in and does it better or more resources or whatnot. And that was true, and that in that particular case was flour milling. And so they realized, well, this was a new opportunity. And the railroad also is very important because it recruited those people. It made a real effort to bring people out here because the railroad only survives if you have business, and it's not passenger traffic, it's freight.
That makes good sense. Yes.
Yeah, and so you've got to have an economic base, and so railroads recruited all over the world, and particularly recruited in Northern Europe, because the railroad they weren't dummies. A lot of their population on the Northern Pacific and whatnot was out of northern Minnesota, the northern Midwest. Those people had all come from Northern Europe, and so they recruited there. You'll see big ads for the Yakima Valley in Swedish newspapers, for example.
Is that true?
Yes.
That
right,
I didn't know.
Right, because they there were people just like, most families. Like my family came out of Germany into Iowa because they didn't want to get involved in the, they saw war coming again from the Napoleonic era after the Napoleon, and they didn't want to get conscripted. And so they immigrated, and Iowa was a fairly new place to go. And they saw opportunity. So, it's the same story. It's just, all you have to do is just take a different, put a different time frame to it. So
now the museum is not just, that's just one aspect of your life.
Right.
There's lots of other things that go on. Now you've served on so many different, I was looking at the list of National Endowment for the Humanities, Institute of Museum and Library Services, which cover a lot more than just this area. Arts of Washington, Humanities of Washington. You've taken so much that you feel passionate about and shared that in so many different ways.
Well, I've been lucky. I mean, I really have been fortunate. I think sometimes I'm fortunate because I come from a smaller area and they need to geographically balance all those boards. But
sure, that's not true.
But you get to meet a lot of different people, and I think that's been one of the great joys of my particular business is you get to meet all kinds of people. You meet people who are just kind of salt of the earth folks and just genuinely great people, and then you meet people who have become very prominent and famous, and and so you get involved and you see kind of all levels, and it's been really fascinating because you're not kind of stuck. And I think also because you're in this kind of business, people naturally think you're interested, and I am, and so then I get stories, and I hear lots of stories. In fact, the kind of the joke is, don't tell me anything because I know who's related to who.
How is your wine?
It's good.
Yeah,
it's good. In fact, I should have another little.
Yeah, so this is Ryder Cellars. It's a Pinot. It's lovely. Very nice.
Yes,
Well,
appreciate
John, one
this.
of the things I think you're probably best known for right now is the success you had with raising the fundraiser, really, for the Rotary Marketplace, which is where the farmers market takes place now in downtown Yakima, but it's also used for many other events as well. That was a big project, and that was something that you were really spearheading.
Well, when you become president of Downtown Rotary, you get the chance to pick a project. And, there's been lots of them. That's where we have a lot of the playgrounds in town, the Rotary Aquatic Center, for example. A lot of those things were all because presidents at the time picked that project. Well, I wanted something for downtown because I'd been working with the downtown development, and also I was coming off the, I'll be very honest, the disappointment over the loss of the plaza that was to be built downtown. And so I wanted to do something that, if that wasn't going to happen, let's do something else. And so I thought, well, we'll build this marketplace. Well, as all those projects do, and again, this is something I'm noted for. Oh, it's not going to be that hard, and it's not going to cost that much money. Well, it ended up being a lot harder and costing a lot more. In fact, the joke in the museum all the time was when after a while, when because we did a lot of remodeling when I was there, a lot of rebuilding, and the whole front of the lobby and everything. It was like, oh, this is going to be really easy. It's not going to cost very much. Well, of course, then it would start to cost more and more and more, and there would be some other problem. But I've actually enjoyed it. I love doing that kind of construction work, and we're actually looking at now adding kind of the next phase to that marketplace is we're going to be putting permanent restrooms there that we're working on, and I'm back raising money for them. So,
well, maybe people contribute to watching this. It really has become, I think, a focal point of the city centre. Not just the farmers market, because obviously the downtown summer nights are there, and lots of other festivals happen on the Saturday and the Sunday, arts festivals, etc. So I think it's really created a very vibrant centerpiece for Yakima.
Well, that's what we're hoping. I mean, the whole idea behind it was not just to be the farmers marketplace. It was also to be a spot where a lot of things could happen. And, we have great plans. I mean, obviously you can't do everything right away, and it's expensive, but to do other things there that could actually make it a more amenable spot without destroying, because the businesses that are in there, they're still going to need some parking spaces and whatnot, and so we don't want to, infringe upon that. At the same time, I think it can become a kind of a center space. Without telling tales out of school, for example, the Rotary Trust right now is even looking at doing some art there, some public art there, to add a little more pizzazz to the space. So we'll keep looking at it and doing more things, and as time goes on, and then we'll do something else.
Well, I'm a big fan of the farmers market. I mean, I hardly ever miss a Sunday because there's always so much stuff to go. You do? Oh, but actually, that's where we first met.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm the guy at the booth.
That's right. Yes. And I'm just the guy wandering around shopping. But it's, as I was saying, I just think it's become this very great focal point. It's very social. And you see so many families, etc. there. Do you think when you finally decide that you've done everything you can do and you do want to retire, which I don't think is going to happen, is that going to be your biggest legacy, or is it going to be what you've achieved at the museum?
Well, I hope it's not just me for any of these spots. I mean, there's so many people who've been involved and been helpful, because you certainly can't do any of that stuff by yourself. And there's been some great generosity of people who've not only been generous with their time or their finances, but also with their time and also with their patience with me to get it done. But I think that'll be, I'm proud that it was done. I'm proud that some of the things we've done at the museum and made that a much more loving place. And now the next generations will do something better and have something to build on it. So.
Well, I personally have only been here a couple of years. Well, only, it seems much longer. I'm very established here in my own life, so I'm not really aware of what the difference was with the museum before. But whenever I go there, it's fascinating, and it feels very modern. It feels very dynamic.
Well, it was always. It's always been a real kind of underloved, undervalued facility, but it was built privately with private philanthropy beginning in the 50s. And it's been supported all along. And what I've done is kind of the next step. And there's been a step before me, a couple steps before me, and there'll be steps after me. So we hope that it'll continue to be. It's actually really quite a large and facility for a town this size, particularly because it's not publicly supported. It's all privately, private philanthropy. The kindness of strangers, we say.
Yeah, I'm curious. When people see you coming, or they get a phone call from John, or even with your friends, they think, "Oh,
what's he want now?" Yeah. What's he want now?
That's a very positive thing. It's not a negative thing, but I mean, you have been a motivator for so much fundraising in the area that I'm sure. People think,
there's been others too, and it's but I am kind of feeling like it is kind of difficult because I'm now feeling like I hate to keep asking the same people all the time. I feel like people are very generous, but there's lots of causes, and they shouldn't always be mine. Although I think they should. But.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Why not? Well, if anybody else has causes, they can go for it.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, John, this has been an absolute delight. It's been lovely to know a little bit about your background, about your journey to Yakima in the first place. But we're going to end with just a couple of very short either-or questions.
Uh-oh.
Here we are. Just have a little bit of fun. So here we go. Talking or listening?
Oh, used to be listening. I would listen a lot and stay in the background. I probably talk more now.
That's your preference. That's probably mine too.
Yeah.
Taking a friend on your family vacation or joining a friend on their family vacation?
I would think taking a friend. I would take a friend.
Might be my answer too. Now, I think we've already got the answer to this. A purple grape or a green grape?
Green grape. Well, any grape.
And what's worse, or perhaps what's better, being afraid or embarrassed?
Embarrassed, maybe.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, hanging out with little kids or older adults?
Probably older adults. Yeah, I grew up around older people. Everybody was older in my family, and I grew up around older. I'm more comfortable with them than I with kids.
Do you have kids and grandkids here?
No, okay. I'm not married. So.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, John, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us for Wine Time.
And thank you.
Cheers. Really nice to see you.
And it's nice meeting you.
Well, it's good to see you again. Absolutely. And this has been a really nice Pinot Noir.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So thank you for joining us for another edition of Wine Time Yakima. I want to say a very big thank you to the Yakima Visitors Centre for hosting us again today. They really have this beautiful facility and they're always very kind to invite us each week and share a bottle of wine with us for our guests. So thank you to them. And join us again for another Wine Time Yakima very soon.